While many of these stories were tragic, several stand out for their historic significance or the way they shifted the global narrative. Thanks for joining us. My name is Kyle, and welcome to the special edition of Worldwide Campus News and Entertainment, presenting 2025 Year in Review for Tuesday, December 30th. We'll be diving deep into these pivotal moments, from political upheavals and natural disasters to the entertainment milestones that kept us talking. So grab a snack and settle in. Let's get started. Are you looking for some category? Then why not subscribe to Worldwide Campus News and Entertainment for more topics like this one, and ring the bell to get notified for about our latest videos. Let's start with the New Orleans truck attack and Cybertruck explosion. This is a review of 2025 begins with a tragic and chaotic start to the year. The United States was rocked by two separate vehicular attacks, one a mass casualty event in the south and the other a targeted explosion in the west. We'll tell you something what happened. In the early hours, there was a 42-year-old Army veteran. His name is Shamsa Jabbar, and it has been drove a rented white Ford F-150 Lightning into a massive crowd of New Year's Eve revelers on Bourbon Street. That was just in Louisiana. As you know, Jabbar bypassed police barricades and drove through a 3-block stretch, and it has striking dozens of pedestrians. After his vehicle crashed, then he exited and engaged in a shootout with police. Only about 14 victims were killed by the vehicle impact, and at least 57 others were injured. You know, Jabbar was fatally shot by officers at the scene. After New Orleans, only 1 hour later on the same day, a second incident occurred outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, that's in Nevada. There was the person named Matthew Allen Livensberger. He is an active duty Green Beret, parked a rented Tesla Cybertruck in the hotel's portrait co-chair. He just died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound a second before the truck exploded. Moving on to here in South Korea, following his failed martial law declaration in December 2024, as you remember this. You know, President Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached and his power suspended. As you might know, the situation reached a breaking point as authorities moved to take him into custody. Only the 5-hour standoff, investigators from the CIO, and over 3,000 police officers. In the first week, while the world was still processing the event in New Orleans and South Korea, a massive natural disaster struck the, what you have to name is, roof of the world. There was a powerful 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck Tingui country in the Shagasti region of Tibet, approximately 80 km north of Mount Everest. How disaster was. Now we're getting wrapping up for the first month of 2025. There was the California experience, an unprecedented environmental disaster that defied the traditional fire season timeline. In the terrifying display of climate volatility, Southern California was ravaged by a series of massive wildfires starting on January 7, 2025. While winter is typically the wet season, a combination of hydroclimate whiplash, extreme wetness in 2024 followed by a record dry autumn turned into landscape into a tinderbox. So to round it out, we look at the digital earthquake that fundamentally altered the American social media landscape. After years of legal battles and political maneuvering, the unthinkable happened. TikTok, the app used by over 170 million Americans, officially ceased service in the United States. Next, we had the second inauguration ceremony 2025 for Donald Trump. This is the World Watch, a historic return as US President Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. You know, after it becomes for the 45th. For the first time in that case, the swearing-in was moved indoors to the U.S. Capitol Rotunda due to record-breaking freezing temperature and high winds. Under the Rotunda's dome, Chief Justice John Roberts administers the oath as Trump placed his hand on 2 Bibles, his own childhood Bible and the historic Lincoln Bible. Of course, in a 30-minute speech, President Trump declared the day Liberation Day and promised that the golden age of America begins right now. So help me God, Trump said. Now for the tribute, the entertainment world was left in shock following the sudden passing of Taiwanese superstar Bobby Hsu, known as Big S. While traveling in Japan with her family for the Lunar New Year holiday, Bobby Hsu contracted a severe case of influenza. What began as a common flu rapidly progressed into acute pneumonia. Despite receiving medical attention in Tokyo, her condition deteriorated quickly and she passed away on February 2, 2025 at the age of 48. Next, we have the Golden Jubilee Summit. On February 6, 2025, Prime Minister, you don't know what's the Thai name, Piatothong Shinawatra, has been arrived at the Great Hall of the People for an official visit marking the 50th anniversary of China-Thailand diplomatic relations. President Xi Jinping formally designated 2025 as the Golden Year of Friendship, emphasizing that China and Thailand are one family bond. Moving on to lackluster. On February 23, 2025, the Conservative Union bloc finished in first place with approximately 28.5% of the vote. While Free Rich merged declared victory, it was considered a lackluster win as the party fell far short of an absolute majority, forcing him into months of difficult coalition negotiations. Let's talk about Hong Kong Financial Service. On February 26, 2025, Hong Kong Financial Secretary Paul Chan delivered a critical budget speech and subsequent press conference. Facing a larger-than-expected deficit, the reinforced fiscal plan focused on belt tightening while placing a massive bet on artificial intelligence. It has been reached HK $87.2 billion. In the White House, in a year of high-stakes diplomacy, few moments were as explosive as the February 28th Oval Office meeting. What was meant to be a signing ceremony for a multi-billion-dollar economic deal devoted into a televised shouting match that reshaped the US-Ukraine relationship with Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. So this is the next part. In a year that saw the loss of several musician icons, the passing of Khalil Fong on February 21st stood out as a profound moment for the Mandopop world. The 41-year-old artist, known for revolutionizing the genre with his soul boy R&B style, left a void that resonated across the globe. We have the next one. In a year defined by the friction between the White House and Kyiv, the United Kingdom stepped in as Ukraine's primary diplomatic anchor. Volodymyr Zelensky arrived at London's Stansted Airport just 24 hours after his explosive, televised confrontation with Donald Trump in Washington. Moving on to China, while the world's attention was fixed on a geopolitical drama in Washington and London, China turned inward to solidify its domestic and economic roadmap. From March 4th to 10th, the Great Hall of the People in Beijing hosted the 3rd section of the 14th CPPCC National Committee, a critical advisory assembly that set the tone for China's year of resilience. Now for the speech. On March 4th, US President Donald Trump delivered his first major address to a joint session of Congress since returning to the White House. Spanning 1 hour and 40 minutes, it set a record as the longest joint address in modern history, serving as a defiant manifesto for his second term. Throughout 2025, the US administration, led by President Trump, exerted significant pressure on Kyiv to move toward the negotiating table. This specific 30-day ceasefire proposal became a recurring theme, first surfacing in March 2025 during high-stakes talks in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Let's talk about Philippine President. After his arrest in Manila on March 11 following a visit to Hong Kong, Duterte was transferred to the United Nations Detention Union in The Hague. He made his initial appearance before pre-trial Chamber 1. You know, the first court appearance of former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte before the International Criminal Court. We have more disaster one. It was a massive infrastructure failure that paralyzed one of the world's most critical travel hubs. Late in the evening on March 20th, a catastrophic failure occurred at the North High Electrical Substation in Hayes, West London, just outside the airport perimeter. Now, this is a critical diplomatic gathering in Tokyo that attempted to stabilize East Asian relations amidst global economic shifts and new leadership in Japan. As we learned about, the 11th China-Japan ROK Foreign Minister meeting was the first trilateral of its kind since 2023. While the core working section involved the 3 foreign ministers, the arrival of Wang Yi and Chojiyo for a courtesy call with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba set a significant tone for the year. The next cover of the high-stakes negotiation that took place behind closed doors. This is the 11th trilateral meeting. The meeting was seen as a diplomatic bridge aimed at insulating East Asia from global economic volatility, specifically the new wave of US tariffs on automobiles and technology. In March 2025, A critical moment in the shifting diplomatic landscape of the Ukraine-Russia conflict took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Following a 12-hour marathon of high-stakes negotiation between US and Russian officials on March 24th, Russia announced that a planned joint statement would not be released. Talk about for the financial. The Board of Forum for Asia, often called the Asian Davos, released its flagship annual report, painting a resilient picture of the continent's economic future. Despite global headwinds like trade protectionism and geopolitical tension, the report projected that Asia would remain the world's primary growth engine. Another disaster on March 28, 2025, central Myanmar was devastated by a massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake, the most powerful to strike the country in over a century. The quake occurred at a shallow depth of 10 km along the Sagani Fault, sending shockwaves through Southeast Asia and causing significant damage as far away as Bangkok. Next, on April 1st, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi concluded high-level talks with Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. The visit was part of a broader three-day mission where Wang Yi also met with President Vladimir Putin, signaling a deepening of the no-limits partnership amidst a shifting global landscape. As it might show these on March 14th, a significant shift in the US-China trade war occurred when the Trump administration adjusted the duty rate for de minimis mail shipments from China to 54%. This move was part of a broader, high-velocity tariff escalation strategy dubbed the Liberation Day policy aimed at closing loopholes and rebalancing trade deficits. Moving on to next, in mid-April 2025, Chinese President Xi Jinping embarked on his first overseas trip of the year, choosing Vietnam as the anchor for a high-stakes tour of Southeast Asia. This fourth state visit was widely viewed as a strategy counter-move to the Liberation Day tariffs imposed by the US earlier in the month. Immediately following his stop in Hanoi, Xi Jinping also arrived in Kuala Lumpur on April 15th for a three-day state visit. This marked his first trip to Malaysia in over a decade and was timed to coincide with Malaysia's 2025 ASEAN chairmanship, further cementing China's influence in the region as a buffer against Western trade pressures. Now, to wrap up his three-nation Southeast Asian tour, Xi arrived in Phnom Penh, his first to Cambodia since 2016, aimed to solidify an ironclad friendship that has become a cornerstone of China's regional strategy amidst heightened trade tension with the United States. As you might notice, on April 21st, the Vatican announced the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. The 266th Pope, and the first from the Americas, passed away on Easter Monday at the Doma Sancti Marfe following a battle with double pneumonia. That's totally sad about the death of Pope Francis. Now, on April 24th, China celebrated its 10th National Space Day with the successful launch of the Shenzhou 20 manned spacecraft, blasting off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center at 5:17 p.m. in Beijing. The mission marked a historic milestone in the operation of the Tiangong space station. The next number we have the 2025 Australian federal election was a historic moment for the nation, marking a significant shift in the political landscape. Held on May 3rd, the election resulted in a landslide victory for the Australia Labor Party, which starts with the beginning with the ALP. Anthony Albanese secured a rare second consecutive term as Prime Minister, a feat not achieved by a Labour leader in decades. Now for the specialties, Russia marked the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II with a massive show of military strafing and diplomatic maneuvering on Red Square. Against a backdrop of ongoing conflict in Ukraine, the event served as a major platform for President Vladimir Putin to project resilience and showcase a shifting global order. So, what comes next? The Catholic Church entered a new era following one of the most significant transitions in modern Vatican history. After the passing of Pope Francis on April 21st, the College of Cardinals gathered in a swift two-day conclave to elect his successor. We'd like to present the approval of Pope Leo XIV. The next topic, the 2025 Polish presidential election concluded on June 1st, with a result that sent shockwaves through European politics. In the classic race in Poland's post-communist history, conservative historian and political newcomer Karl Naraki emerged victorious. Along with that, the world's attention turned to the Siragin Palace in Istanbul, where high-level delegations from Russia and Ukraine met for a critical second round of direct peace talks. Brokered by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and influenced by intense diplomatic pressure from the Trump administration, the meeting was seen as a fragile window of opportunity to end the conflict. As we get to the next one, on June 3rd, South Korea held a historic snap presidential election following the impeachment and removal of Yoon Suk-yeol. In a monumental political comeback, Liberal opposition leader Lee Jae-myung of the Democratic Party secured a decisive victory, reclaiming the presidency for the progressives. Let's talk about visa restriction on Harvard international students. In May and June 2025, a major legal and political battle erupts between the Trump administration and Harvard University. Citing national security concerns and a failure to report radicalism, the administration took unprecedented steps to limit the university's ability to host global talent. Moving on to next, the London Trade Summit. On June 9th and 10th, the world's two largest economies met at Lancaster House in London for a high-stakes round of negotiations. This meeting was the first formal gathering of the China-US Economic and Trade Consultation Mechanism, a body established earlier in the year to prevent a total decoupling of global trade. Now, what comes next? In June 2025, a long-simmering shadow war erupted into a direct, large-scale military confrontation. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a massive preemptive air campaign involving over 200 jets, targeting dozens of Iranian nuclear facilities and military command centers. Now, on June 30th, Hong Kong marked the 5th anniversary of the implementation of the national security law. During a high-level forum, top officials from both the central government and the HKSAR reaffirmed the law's role not just as a security measure, but as the guardian of the one country, two system framework. So we just understand by the weather whiplash Texas floods. In early July 2025, Texas experienced one of the most catastrophic weather whiplash events in the US history. After a multi-year drought that had left the ground hard and impermeable, the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry stole over central Texas, unleashing a 1-in-1,000-year rainfall event. As you might notice, in September 2025, Japan's political landscape faced yet another upheaval as Shigeru Ishiba was forced to resign as prime minister after just 11 months in office. Despite his long-held ambition for the role, Ishiba's tenure was plagued by a minority government deadlock and intense internal pressure from his own Liberal Democratic Party. Now for the 25th China-EU Summit in Beijing. Beijing's Great Hall of the People hosted a pivotal diplomatic encounter as President Xi Jinping met with the new President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, marking the 50th anniversary of the China-EU diplomatic ties. The summit was a high-stakes effort to stabilize a relationship strained by trade wars and geopolitical shifts. Talk about the Thailand-Cambodia border war. The long-demands border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia reignited into the most violent military confrontation between the two nations in decades. What began as a small skirmish in May escalated into a full-scale conflict involving fighter jets, heavy artillery, and the displacement of the nearly 1 million people. Talk about the Great Recall Falls in Taiwan. In the summer of 2025, Taiwan's political landscape faced a massive street test as the opposition-held legislature was targeted by a wave of recall petitions. Known as the Great Recall Movement, the campaign sought to unseat dozens of legislators following a year of intense parliamentary gridlock and controversial legislative reforms. As we understand this, on August 10th, the media world was shaken by a direct Israeli airstrike on a clearly marked press tent outside Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. The attack resulted in the deaths of 5 Al Jazeera staff members, marking the single deadliest day for the network in its history and one of the most controversial incidents of the ongoing conflict. So this is really dangerous, you know that, huh? Anyway, we're going to move on for next. Talk about the Alaska Summit. The eyes of the world were the Joint Base Amandolph Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska, for the first face-to-face meeting between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin since 2019. The high-stakes summit was framed as a last-ditch effort to find a diplomatic off-ramp for the war in Ukraine. Talk about the coalition of the willing peace summit. Following the inclusive Alaska summit, the diplomatic focus shifted to Europe. President Trump hosted a critical follow-up meeting in Washington with key European leaders including Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, and Friedrich Merz to align the West's stance before the next round of negotiation with Kyiv and Moscow. Back to that, Thailand's political landscape was once again upended when the Constitutional Court ruled 6-3 to remove Paetongtarn Shinawatra from her position as Prime Minister. The ruling marked the end of her one-year tenure and dealt a massive blow to the Shinawatra political dynasty. Now for the SCO, as China hosted the largest ever gathering of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in the port city of Tianjin. Under the slogan promoting the Shanghai spirit, SCO in action, the summit signaled a major consolidation of non-Western powers. Before September 11th, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was one of the most significant and shocking events of 2025, marking a peak in the year's political volatility. Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old founder and CEO of Turning Point USA, was assassinated while speaking at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. He was hosting a Prove Me Wrong outdoor debate as part of his American Combat Tour. At approximately 12:23 p.m., Kirk was struck in the neck by a single high-caliber bullet fired from the roof of the nearby Losi Center building. He was rushed to Timpanogos Regional Hospital but was pronounced deadly short after. Following a 33-hour manhunt and the release of FBI surveillance footage, Tyler James Robinson, a 22-year-old from Washington, Utah, was taken into custody. In the 2025 Hong Kong Policy Address, Chief Executive John Lee prioritized the Northern Metropolis as the new engage of the city's economic development. A key component of this strategy involves sweeping reforms to constructive and planning standards to accelerate growth. Now what about this? In late September 2025, Super Typhoon Ragasa, known as Nando in the Philippines, emerged as the most powerful storm of the year, causing unprecedented disruption to Southeast Asia's travel and logistics hubs. Back in Japan, in October 2025, Japan reached a historic political milestone as Sanae Takaichi was elected the new president of the Liberal Democratic Party, subsequently becoming the nation's first female prime minister. Now, after Al Jazeera, after 2 years of devastating conflict, a major breakthrough was achieved with the signing of a comprehensive Gaza peace plan, marking the beginning of a coordinated ceasefire. Moving on to next, in October 2025, the Norwegian Nobel Committee announced that the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Venezuela opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, a decision that resonated globally as a stand for democratic resilience. In October 2025, Taiwan's political landscape saw a major shift as former lawmaker Zheng Liwen was elected the new chairperson of the Kuomintang, becoming the second woman to lead the party. The 47th ASEAN Summit, held in Kuala Lumpur from October 26 to 28, was a landmark event that refined the bloc's geographic and diplomatic footprint. Under the theme Inclusivity and Sustainability, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim hosted a gathering that balanced major power rivalries with significant regional breakthroughs. What we have next, on October 30th, 2025, on the sidelines of the APEC Summit in Busan, South Korea, US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a high-stakes 100-minute meeting at Gimhae Air Base. The encounter resulted in a pragmatic truce that temporarily halted an escalating global trade war. Like the same as Texas flood, in late October 2025, Hurricane Melissa etched its name into history as the most powerful storm of the year and the strongest tropical cyclones to ever strike Jamaica. Back in China, the Shenzhou 22 mission was indeed a defining moment in space exploration this year, primarily because it wasn't a standard mission, it was a high-stakes, launch-on-need rescue operation. As it just might happen, the fire at Wangfengkou in Taipo was not only the deadliest fire in Hong Kong in nearly 80 years, but also a catalyst for massive structural and legal reform in the city. As we wrap up the political landscape, the December 7th Legislative Council election stands as a pivotal moment of consolidation for the city's Patriots-only governance model. Following a year of intense recovery efforts after the Taipo fire, This election set the stage for the 8th term legislature. Like typo fire, one of the most devastating global headlines of the year, the December 14th attack on Sydney's Bondi Beach sent shockwaves through Australia and the international community. What was meant to be a joyful Holocaust by the Sea celebration turned into the deadliest act of terrorism in modern Australian history. You might understand this. In a year already marked by a tragedy, the entertainment world was left reeling by the shocking news from Brentwood. This entry covers the heartbreaking end for one of Hollywood's most influential couples, Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer. And now for the Golden Globes. While the 82nd Golden Globes took place at the start of the year on January 5, 2025, its impact resonated throughout the award season, setting the tone for the cinematic and television landscape of the year. Moving on to next. If 2024 was the year of Brad Summer, 2025 was the year the Recording Academy finally connected its historical oversights. The 67th Annual Grammy Awards, held on February 2nd at the Crypto.com Arena, was defined by a mix of long overdue coronation and the undeniable rise of new pop royalty. For sports, in a rematch of Super Bowl LVII, the Philadelphia Eagles claimed redemption in a dominated fashion, crushing the Kansas City Chiefs' dreams of a historic three-peat. Held on February 9th, at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, the game was defensive masterclass that silenced one of the league's most potent offenses. Talk about the social media name. The world celebrated 2 decades of the platform that turned broadcasting yourself into a global industry. From its humble origin as a failed dating site to becoming the primary way the world consumes video, YouTube's 20th year was a victory lap for the creator economy. As it on NBC, the celebration of Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary was a monumental 3-hour primetime special on February 16, 2025 that brought together generations of comedy legends to honor the show's massive cultural footprint. Back to the ceremony, the 97th Academy Award, held on March 2nd, was a night that championed independent cinema and saw a first-time host breathe new life into the ceremony. It will be remembered as the year of Honora and the historic arrival of a comedy legend on the Oscar stage. Just same as the Oscar, the 43rd Hong Kong Film Awards, held on April 22nd at the Hong Kong Cultural Centre, was a night that balanced high-octane spectacle with deeply moving human dramas. It was a celebration of both the city's gritty cinematic roots and its new era of storytelling. Now for the red carpet on May 5th. The steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art were transferred into a navy blue floor view from a historic night that celebrated the Black Dandy. It was the first time in over 20 years that the Consumes Institute focused exclusively on menswear. Moving on to next. The 78th Cannes Film Festival, held from May 13 to 24th, was a historic edition that combined high-stakes political statements with a record-breaking streak for independent cinema. Under jury president Juliette Binoche, the festival delivered one of its most emotional closing ceremonies in decades. In a year where the 69th Eurovision Song Contest returned to its roots in Basel, Switzerland, the competition was a dazzling display of pop opera dominance, a high-stakes voting drama. As for the talent show, the lights of Broadway shone brightest at the 78th Annual Tony Awards, held at the David H. Koch Theater at Lincoln Center. The night was a mix of unexpected upsets and the crowning of a new experimental comedy icon. As we go on for next, the Australian television industry gathered at the Star Sydney for the 65th TV Week Logie Awards. It was a night of historic firsts and emotional farewells, anchored by the sharp wit of returning host Sam Pang. And now for Italy, the 82nd Venice International Film Festival, held from August 27 to September 6, was defined by a surprising top prize and a ceremony that leaned heavily into global political resonance. Under jury president Alexander Payne, the festival on the Lido Pro veteran artists still have the power to shock. We're almost getting there. The 77th Primetime Emmy Awards took over the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles, hosted by comedian Nate Bargatze. The night was a mix of record-breaking comedy, medical drama nostalgia, and a very public and profitable charity stunt. Here comes the last one. To close out the countdown, we look at the 52nd Annual Daytime Emmy Awards, held on October 17th at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, hosted by Mario Lopez. The night was a celebration of long-running legacies and a historic record-breaking win. What are your favorite topics in 2025? And what did we miss? Let us know in the comments below. And that's the end of the year of 2025. As always, thank you very much for watching and Happy New Year. We hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments what you think about this. Check out these other recent clips from worldwide campus news and entertainment. Then be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified for our latest videos.